What we're looking at today is making prints, black and white prints, to archival gallery standards, suitable for exhibition and suitable for then maybe to be purchased by a collector or a major museum and art gallery. This is just a section of one of my exhibitions, the City Stories exhibition. Those are the cameras that I actually used in the 1960s to make this body of work and some of the original contact prints. But we're going to be mainly focusing on how I make prints to archival standards so that they can be purchased by, say, by collectors, suitable for exhibition in galleries and hanging in permanent collections. This is another exhibition of mine, the Expressive Land, which was at Photo Gallery Goveb. Again, all the prints here are for sale, and all the prints are made to exacting archival standards. I should stress, of course, that these prints are made on baryta or fibre-based papers, not resin coated. Buy the best quality baryta fibre-based papers that you can. Those are the only papers suitable for archival processing, and as you will see later on, also selenium toning. So again, all of these prints, no matter what the size, are processed to very high exacting archival standards. At a time when most photographers have finished with their darkrooms many years ago, and actually many college and university art schools have also closed their darkrooms. I say many, not all. Interestingly, there are still a few university art schools that have retained their darkrooms, and I know from experience that certainly one of the ones in Wales that happens to be top of the league tables in Wales and very close to top of the league tables in the UK. So whether there's anything to be said about that or not, that's for somebody else to decide. However, there are photographers like myself who still make silver prints in the darkroom for exhibition and for sale through our respective galleries and dealers. And many of the people who buy our prints want a handmade print made by us in the darkroom, and that gives it an extra cachet, an extra collectability, if you like. So what I thought I'd talk about today is not just the basics of printing, prints like this, but how to make archival prints. In other words, prints that will last forever. I've already talked about platinum printing in a past video, and platinum by its very nature as a noble metal is of course absolutely stable and archival. Silver, however, as many curators, gallery directors, conservators will tell you, silver is another matter. And unless a silver print is made to quite exacting standards, not difficult, not overly time consuming, but nevertheless a certain process has to be carried out in order for the silver print to last forever and to make it collectible and to make it acceptable for access into museums, galleries, and certainly collectors would expect nothing less. So what I'm going to talk about is how I make these prints and others to archival standards, so that when they're passed on through a gallery to a collector, to a museum or an important art collection, the people in those museums can know that this print is going to last for as long as it possibly can, and possibly even forever. I'm sure you've all seen silver prints from the 19th century and early 20th century that are fading, that are stained, that are, don't look 100%. Well, that's just due to mostly the processing. And so there are a few simple steps that you can follow that don't involve a huge amount of expense. They do involve perhaps a little bit more time and care, but then at the end of the day, you're going to make a print that is going to last forever, and it, will be fully collectible. And if somebody's gone to the trouble of retaining their darkrooms, of retaining that equipment, then presumably you really care about the prints you make, and so these extra few steps will not be too onerous, too much of a burden. So I hope you'll follow the video through. And again, if you like my content, if you think it's been a help, please hit the subscribe button and I'll make more content in the future that will help you. Many thanks. Keep watching. So this is just a quick look at my darkroom sink setup. I work from left to right. It's a long sink, 12 foot long. So I've got dishes for developer, stop bath, 2 fixers, which I'll explain more of in a moment, and my wash tank. My enlarger bench is just behind me. So plenty of room for making large prints. Okay, this print has just gone into the fixer. A few seconds ago, I turned on the white light. I've got 2 fixers here. They're both identical, and I'm going to fix for half the total time in each fixer. And the reason for this is that when fixer becomes exhausted and you leave prints in fixer that's been used perhaps a little bit too long, is that insoluble compounds can form that bond onto the fibres of the paper and onto the emulsion, which, because they're insoluble, can't be washed away. So by going into a second fresh fixing bath, those compounds become soluble again, and so they can be washed away in water. So I'm keeping one eye on the timer here. Then when half the total fixing time is complete, I'm going to move it into the second fresh fixing bath. This is not using any extra fixer, because when this becomes exhausted, I should dump this, move fixer number 2 to fixer number 1, make a fresh fixer number 2, and so on. And that way you're not using any extra materials or liquids, but you are ensuring that the print is fully fixed. So this has now been half the time, so I'll take this print out, let it drain, then go into the second fresh fixing bath, and I'll give it half the total time again in here, and then I'll transfer it into the wash tray where it can hold and rinse until I clear the bath. If I finish printing for the day, I hold all the prints into the wash tank, then clear my chemicals away, and then I get into the next stage, which is the archival bit. But if you do no more than this, if you do no more than be careful with your fixing and then give a thorough wash, those prints will last a very long time. But I'm going to take you through a couple more stages just to make absolutely certain that those prints are going to last a lifetime, hopefully longer. So stick with me. I'll put those prints into the wash, and then we'll clear these chemicals away, and then we'll go on to the next stage. Okay, I've cleared away all my dishes from the printing session, and while I've been doing that, the prints have been rinsing away in the rinse bath, and what I've got here is Hypo clearing agent, Kodak Hypo clearing agent. This is important. It's not Hypo eliminator. You might see some formula online for Hypo eliminator. That's quite nasty stuff, sodium hydroxide and a few other things, and you don't need that and I think it's actually harmful to the paper base, the fibers of the print. What you need is the readily available Hypo clearing agent, which just helps to get rid of any residual fixture in the print, and the idea is that it cuts down washing time. Well, what we're going to do, we're going to use it in conjunction with selenium toning in a moment, and still a full washing time, and that's all you need, and that's a really good way of progressing. Kodak Hypo clearing agent seems to be becoming a little bit more difficult to obtain these days, but Ilford make a similar product called Ilford Wash Aid. It's basically the same chemical. It's mostly sodium sulfite and a few other chemicals, so it's nothing nasty, and it's about 2 minutes. Just follow the instructions. You usually make up a stock solution and then you dilute it to make a working solution, and it's usually only about 2 minutes in the clearing agent, and that really helps to get rid of any residual fixture. Now we're going to take this another level a bit later on. I'm going to selenium tone these prints as well, and in order for that to happen, in order for us to selenium tone them successfully, all the fixture has got to be got rid of from the print. If you don't, as soon as you put them into some selenium toner, they will stain a dirty yellow colour almost instantaneously, and you will have ruined your prints. So I'm going to give these a couple of minutes in the Hypo clearing agent, then I'm going to pop them back into the wash, and they're going to wash for another 15-20 minutes or so while I set up the selenium toner, and then the selenium tone them, and then a final wash, and that print will last forever. That's as good as you're going to ever make a silver print. So just keep these going for another minute or so, and then we'll transfer them into the wash, and we're ready to go to the next stage. Okay, this is the penultimate stage now, before the final wash. So what I've got here is selenium toner. I've always used Kodak selenium toner for 45 years or more. Again, a bit like the Hypo clearing agent, it seems to be getting a little bit more difficult to obtain, but Ilford make an equivalent product. You'll notice I'm wearing rubber gloves. This is the health and safety bit coming up. Selenium is toxic. It's a heavy metal. It can be absorbed through cuts or scratches in the skin into the bloodstream. So just handle it with care. I've got reasonable ventilation here in the dark room, very high ceiling, the fan at the top, and I always use rubber gloves. So I've got a print in the wash that I'm going to tone. I'm going to tone this print as well, but I'm not going to give away any dilutions or times, because it does vary with every single print. It varies with type of paper, it varies with the tonalities of the print, it varies with the developer that you might have used, so there's no fixed time and dilution. I'm not going to tone for any kind of effect, okay? I leave that to British camera clubs. They love their effects. What I'm toning for is just to transfer the silver into selenium to make the coating much more impervious to external chemicals and so on, to make it fully archival. So I'm going to put the print. This is going to be perhaps the most boring bit of the video, because you really won't see any change. The change is very subtle, and my method is to keep the print face down for as long as possible, then only flip it over every now and again just to see that imperceptible change that you get with when it's coated and when the toning is sufficient for archival purposes. So that's why I'm keeping an untoned print in the water bath here, so I can just have a quick shift every now and again and see what's happening. As I say, I'm not toning for any color change, any kind of effect. So I only keep it in here for perhaps 3-4 minutes, and it's fairly dilute. So you won't see a change on the video, I'm afraid. So this isn't going to be very exciting, but it's a very important stage, and will ensure after it's washed thoroughly afterwards that these prints will last forever. Selenium toner is quite expensive. It's £30–40 a litre, but 1 litre will make up many litres of working solution, and you can reuse it. So when I finish toning this print and that one, I'll put it back into the jug and I can reuse that again. And when I see the change perhaps taking a little longer than usual, I'll just top it up with some fresh stock selenium, and that will keep the solution going. So over the course of many months and many prints, it really isn't that expensive. So I hope that's explained a few things. I apologise if this is not the most exciting video you've ever seen, but we're not looking for excitement, we're looking for longevity of the print. We're looking to make a print as good as it possibly can be, and if you've gone to all the trouble of making a good print to start with, then this is just a few extra steps, a little bit extra time, and that way you've got a print that will last forever. So I'll leave this a little bit longer, and then we'll start on the next one. Okay, so you've seen the process. There's nothing difficult about it. It's not technically complex. It's just a question of following a few simple steps. As I said, it's a little bit of extra time, a little bit of extra expense, but if you're going to go to the trouble of retaining your darkroom, of making decent prints, then I think they deserve to be made in the best way that I can. What I should say is, after those prints have washed, they're squeegeed, and I air dry them on clean fiberglass screens. So those prints don't come into contact with anything that's been contaminated with chemicals, obviously, otherwise you're just undoing all the good that you've done. And the screens can be then washed down after use, and they're always inert fiberglass. They don't attract chemicals. And then, of course, when you come to mount them, these are mounted and matted. If you just use cheap mounting board, which contains wood pulp contains lignin, which in turn will attack the silver image and the print. So you have to use 100% cotton rag museum board to mount your print, and these are archivally mounted with just mounting corners and archival tape, so the print is not permanently attached to the mount, and then the mat is cut with the same material. And this then is good enough to show in a gallery, good enough to sell to a collector, good enough to sell to a major museum or art gallery. So hope that's been a help. Thanks for watching. Again, if you like the content, click subscribe, and if you have any comments or you have any queries, leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to get back to you and help with anything that I can. Thanks again.